On my birthday, my parents didn't bring out a cake. They brought out witnesses. Nearly 100 relatives sat neatly around the table, quiet, expectant, watching my father slide a folder toward me like a business contract. Inside was an itemized bill. Just under $400,000. "The cost of raising you," he said calmly. My mother didn't look at me. She stood up and began taking my photos off the wall. One by one, like erasing fingerprints. My sister Lena reached for my car keys. "Dad already transferred the title," she said. "You won't need it anymore." Then my manager stood up from the far end of the room, avoiding my eyes, and fired me on the spot. I didn't cry, I didn't argue, I didn't ask why. I sat there breathing slowly while my entire life was dismantled between wine glasses and folded napkins. My name is Amanda. And that night wasn't a birthday dinner. It was an execution disguised as family. If you're listening on Echoes of Life, tell me where you're watching from. And if your family ever tried to break you quietly, stay with me, because what silence became next is the part they never planned for. Growing up, my family liked to tell people we were close. We ate dinner together. We smiled in photos. We never argued in public. But closeness wasn't what it looked like inside our house. It was control wrapped in politeness. My father believed money proved love. If he paid for something, he owned it. If he owned it, he decided who deserved it. My mother believed silence kept the peace. If she didn't speak, nothing was wrong. If nothing was wrong, she didn't have to choose sides. And my sister Lena learned early how to thrive in that system. She laughed when Dad joked. She agreed before anyone finished a sentence. She knew when to step forward and when to let someone else disappear. That someone else was usually me. I wasn't mistreated in obvious ways. There were no screaming fights, no slammed doors. Instead, there were quiet exclusions, plans made without me, decisions explained after they were final. When something went wrong, I fixed it. When something needed managing, I handled it. Bills, accounts, schedules. I became the reliable one, not because they trusted me, because I didn't complain. I told myself that was adulthood, that independence meant not needing anything, that being low maintenance was a virtue. But over time, I noticed the pattern. Lena was supported before she asked. I was supported only if it benefited someone else. She was praised for potential. I was thanked for usefulness. And every time I felt that quiet sting, I swallowed it. Because swallowing things had always kept the house calm. What I didn't realize then was that calm was never peace. It was preparation. For most of my life, I'd learned how to disappear politely. So when that dinner turned into a courtroom, my first instinct was still silence. I sat there while the folder rested in front of me, while my photos lay face down, while my keys were no longer mine, while my job vanished between wine glasses. Nearly 100 faces watched me carefully. Not with concern, with curiosity. They were waiting to see what kind of woman breaks quietly. For a few seconds, I almost gave them what they wanted. My chest tightened, my throat burned. And then without warning, it hit me all at once. Not anger, grief. Grief for every year I tried harder. Every moment I stayed useful instead of seen. Every time I told myself, this is just how family is. My hands started shaking. Not enough for anyone else to notice, but I felt it. I looked at my father and heard his voice echo in my head. Adults settle their debts. I looked at my mother and remembered all the times she said nothing. I looked at Lena, already certain she'd won, and something inside me finally cracked. I stood up. The chairs scraped loudly against the floor. A few people flinched. My voice didn't rise, but it didn't hide either. "You don't get to invoice my existence," I said. The room froze. My father opened his mouth. I raised my hand, not aggressively, just steady. "I'm not finished." My heart was pounding, but for the first time I didn't push it down. "You taught me to be responsible," I continued. "And tonight I finally understand what that means." I picked up the folder. Not like a threat, like evidence. This isn't accountability. It's control. And I'm done paying for the privilege of being tolerated. No one interrupted me. Even my sister stayed still. I took a breath. "You can keep the money, the car, the approval. I'm done trying to earn a place that was never offered freely." Then I stopped talking. Not because I had nothing left to say, but because silence this time was chosen. I turned and walked out while the room stayed perfectly quiet. If you're watching this on Echoes of Life, pause for a moment. Have you ever been pushed so far that silence stopped being protection and became power instead? Tell me where you're listening from. Because what I did next didn't come from revenge. It came from clarity. I didn't go anywhere dramatic after I left that house. No airport, no tears in a parking lot. I walked. Past quiet homes with porch lights on. Past families finishing dinner. Past lives that felt untouched by what had just happened to mine. By the time I reached my apartment, the shock had faded. What replaced it wasn't rage. It was focus. I dropped my bag, sat at my desk, and opened my laptop. For the first time that night, something felt familiar. I work in cybersecurity. My job has never been revenge. It's pattern recognition. I've spent years fixing problems quietly for other people, including my family. Old bills. Accounts I helped manage temporarily. Transfers my father brushed off as timing issues. At the time I believed him. Why wouldn't I? But systems don't lie. They wait. Within an hour, a pattern emerged. Monthly transfers. Consistent amounts. Money relatives believed was being invested safely. It wasn't. The funds moved briefly, then vanished into personal expenses. Luxury charges. Trips. Lifestyle spending. Lena's lifestyle. I didn't panic. I didn't celebrate. I documented. Screenshots with timestamps. Exported statements. A clean spreadsheet that showed every dollar's path. Then I backed it all up twice. Encrypted drive. Cloud vault. A printed packet sealed in an envelope just in case. Because when people like my father get cornered, they don't confess. They delete. I pulled the HR policy from our intranet and compared it to what happened. No ticket. No case number. No approvals. Just a family concern and a manager trying to please the wrong people. That mismatch was the second pattern of the night, and it told me exactly which lever to pull first. My phone buzzed nonstop beside me. My parents. Lena. Even my boss. I ignored it. By sunrise, the story was complete. I made one call. Not to confront anyone. To my company's regional director. I was terminated tonight, I said calmly. Not through HR. At a private event. Based on personal claims. There was a pause. Then give me 5 minutes. 4 minutes later, my access was restored. Termination reversed. My manager placed on administrative leave. I didn't smile. I just sat there, coffee warming my hands, and felt something unfamiliar. Stability. Later that afternoon, my father called. "You need to fix this," he said. People were asking questions. I didn't break anything, I replied. I organized what was already there. Silence. For years they controlled the story. What I was, what I deserved. That night I realized something important. They didn't lose control because I shouted. They lost it because I finally stopped protecting them. And once the truth was visible, it didn't need my voice anymore. The fallout didn't arrive with sirens. It arrived with silence breaking in the wrong places. By noon, my uncle called first. Not angry, not confused, just quiet. "Amanda," he said, "did you know Richard was moving money?" I closed my eyes once. "I know where it went," I answered. That was all it took. Within hours, conversations were happening without me in the room. Bank reps calling back. Lawyers asking careful questions. Relatives comparing notes they'd never compared before. People who smiled at dinner sounded nervous. They asked about timing and misunderstandings like truth was a negotiation they could reschedule. The house that once felt untouchable suddenly wasn't. My father showed up at my apartment that evening. No audience this time. No relatives lined up like a jury. Just him standing too close to my door, voice already sharpened. "You've gone too far," he said. "You're humiliating this family." I didn't raise my voice. "You invoiced me," I said. "In front of 100 people." He waved a hand like it was a minor detail. "That was discipline. You needed perspective." I felt it then. Not rage, not panic. Something inside me breaking clean. "You stole from them," I said. And blamed me for existing. His mouth opened, closed. Behind him, Lena hovered near the stairwell. No confidence now. No glow. Just fear she couldn't hide. This doesn't have to continue, my father said. We can fix it. Not for you, I replied. For them. My phone rang again. My aunt. Then my uncle. They didn't accuse me. They thanked me. You didn't tear the family apart, my uncle said quietly. You showed us where the cracks were. My father heard it. His shoulders sagged like something finally gave way. Please, he said softer now, just stop. I looked at him fully for the first time. You taught me every action has a cost, I said. This is yours. I closed the door. After that, things moved fast. Accounts froze. Transfers got flagged. Receipts got pulled. Lena's world collapsed in stages. First the credit cards, then the friends, then the invitations that made her feel important. She called me once, then texted, then nothing. My mother sent one message. I hope you're happy. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't fixing their mess. I wasn't absorbing their damage. I wasn't standing between them and consequences anymore. I was standing in my own space, watching the truth do what truth always does when it's finally allowed to exist. And the scariest part? It wasn't watching them fall. It was realizing how much of my life I spent holding them up. I didn't win anything after that. There was no celebration, no victory speech, no moment where everything suddenly felt light. What I felt was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after you stop carrying other people's weight. The house stayed silent. No more calls. No more threats dressed up as concern. No more messages asking me to be reasonable. For the first time, my phone belonged to me. Weeks passed. My work stayed steady. My apartment stayed small. My life stayed mine. People asked if I missed them, if I regretted it, if I felt lonely. The truth. I slept better than I had in years. I stopped bracing myself every time my phone buzzed. Stopped replaying old dinners in my head. Stopped wondering what version of me they were telling behind my back. One night I caught my reflection in the window. Tired. Older. But steady. And I realized something important. I didn't lose my family that night. I lost the role they assigned me. The fixer. The absorber. The one who stayed quiet so everyone else could stay comfortable. That version of me doesn't exist anymore. If you're listening to this on Echoes of Life, and you've ever been punished for telling the truth, or made to feel selfish for protecting yourself, I want you to hear this clearly. Silence isn't weakness, but choosing when to stop being silent. That's strength. You don't owe access to people who invoice your existence. You don't owe loyalty to systems that profit from your pain. And you don't need permission to step out of a story that keeps hurting you. Sometimes peace doesn't come from forgiveness. Sometimes it comes from distance. From clarity. From finally saying, this ends with me. If this story stayed with you like it stayed with me, telling it please, like, share and subscribe to Echoes of Life. We're not here for noise. We're here for truth. And sometimes the quietest ending is the strongest one.